Do some.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Sunday edition of the Paranormal Coffee Talk, formerly known as the Paranormal Brew Show. I'm Nighthawk, one of your hosts, and we have backstage waiting patiently. Got their mics muted, so we can't hear them fiddling around back there and getting their coffee and all that. But we got David and Melissa from the chat that you all know that have been in the Bigfoot field for probably the better part of 5 years now. With David's background and Melissa's background with being in the military, I just thought it'd be a good thing to bring them on and use their military mindset and law enforcement mindset to basically kind of discuss some of the stuff going on with Bigfoot. Okay. Some of you call it the woo factor. Some of you call it the supernatural that's attached to them. I call it the mystique. And the reason I call it the mystique is because I know from dealing with them and my interactions with them that they are several different types, okay? And specifically one type in general, or two of the types in general, are what we are experiencing most of the time. And, 80% of the time, those encounters aren't as scary as it sounds on TV. But the other 20% of the time, what we're encountering is something a little different. So we're going to get into all that today and a little bit more. And God knows how far off the rails we're going to go with all four of us on here. So that being said, I'm going to get into the disclaimer. And it is Nighthawk Eye Strange's podcast channel declares fair use of any and all content, including the music YouTube. I got hit with another strike again. Making allowances for fair use for the purposes such as criticism, commentary, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, research, parody, and general knowledge only. And let's not forget the entertainment value under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, otherwise known in here as the fair use. All right. And any medical stuff that we talk about does not necessarily mean that this channel or any podcast personalities on the channel necessarily represent the discussion, okay, or verify any of the medical, okay? So that's another thing they're trying to hit us on now. So that being said, I'm going to take this off of here. I'm going to unmute everybody's mic and we're going to get into the thick of it.
I'm muted now.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're unmuted. You better watch it
All
there.
right. Everybody's unmuted. Well, good
Those that
morning, crew.
Can you
Good
hear us?
morning.
Hey, morning.
We got a full house,
All right.
and we are going to get into the Bigfoot topic today, guys. Now, I kind of I don't want to disclose too much of what you guys, David and Melissa and Daniel, talked about with John on ECBRO radio the other day, which, by the way, was a very, very interesting conversation. But I found it funny that John didn't realize who I was in the chat. It was so, but making a long story short, the subject came up a lot about people exaggerating encounters and stuff, and I wanted to get everybody's opinion on that today, including everybody in the chat, because we know adrenaline plays a big role, fear, shock, all that entails what people interpret with their vision and with their hearing, actually. And I'm kind of curious to start off the conversation, if you guys would, David and Melissa, what you think about that. And then Eric, if you could follow up, that'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of specifics are you looking for as far as hearing and sight and stuff? Because there's a lot of different factors that go into that.
Well, and that's what I want you to discuss. That's why I brought you on, Mr. Photographer and Investigator. I'm going to pick your brain completely thorough down to the bone. So we're going to really get into the thick of it. And I want you to really just explain to everybody from your perspective and your involvement in what you do with the photography end of it and all that, how you perceive things.
Well, first off, we've always had the interest in it. Being retired military, then retired from the sheriff's office here in 2018, 40 years in the law enforcement field. It does bring a different perspective into things. The growing up, I've been experienced paranormal activity, and so has Melissa over the years. I mean, those are other stories. It's too much to get into right now. That always kept our interest in that. And then when I got my two careers done with, then we met up with Daniel, and we also met up with you from that at one of his Bigfoot cons. Spurred our interest even more that we now have the opportunity to get out and get involved more in it. Uh, you bring the approach to where you have to analyze everything, whether it be sight, hearing. You just can't go off the deep end and say everything is Bigfoot, dog man, or whatever the case may be. I call it like if you have an encounter, you dissect it. You start from that point and work backwards to try to debunk whatever you find, and to do that, when you do that, you're going to come to more truth about what's going on, whether something actually happened. And many times you still have that what if factor because you really can't debunk what you've encountered or heard. We have not had an actual sighting or encounter ourselves, but I have caught some pretty interesting things on audio that makes you think twice about what could be causing that. Now here in Virginia, yeah, we do have bear, we do have coyotes, and all the other wildlife and stuff like that. So you can't specifically rule them out, at least from our perspective right now, until you get out there and do more research. One of my pet peeves is when people go out and use equipment, they don't learn that equipment. They go out and they set it up, and then with whatever they capture, to them, they take it as face value that it's a Bigfoot or whatever the case may be, whatever they're trying to research, and not knowing it may be the equipment that's causing the effect that you're seeing. Because One example is I seen a photo on Facebook one time where someone had a trail cam set out. They had 3 pictures of a possum approaching the trail cam. And the first picture where the possum was further back, you could see 2 dots in the background like eye shine. The second picture, when the camera activated, the possum was a little bit closer to the IR of the camera, and then the dots were a little bit higher above the possum. Then the third picture, when the possum was almost under it, the 2 dots was higher in the photo. And the one that caught that was saying, well, that possum was being stalked by Bigfoot, and it was crouching down and it was standing up as the possum was moving away from it. Well, when you get to looking at it without understanding equipment and how that equipment works, the IR light will reflect on the eyes of whatever you're looking at. And at the right angle, that reflection will come back onto the lens. You've got to look at that. A couple of people seen what I was talking about when I put my post on there. No, you're seeing the eyes of that possum, because as it got closer, by physics alone, when it gets closer, that's going to move up. The 2 dots that's reflecting back. And but there was a bunch of them on that website. No, I can't be that. I mean, it's obvious. You see those 2 dots towards the ground, like it was crouching, standing up as it was watching the possum move. I don't think that was the case. And the picture I seen before that was a deer. A trail cam caught a picture of the deer, and it looked like eye shine and a little bit of a blurry image around the eye shine. But if you take that picture, which I copied it and I put it on my computer and flipped it around, you can see it was a deer head, and you can see some of the antlers coming up. And you got to dissect what you're looking at. You just can't take everything face value as far as being a Bigfoot, dog man, lizard man, whatever the case may be.
Well, let me ask you this, David. Let me interrupt you real quick and ask you this.
Go ahead.
Do you think, or Melissa, I'm interested in what Melissa thinks too about this, since she's into the herbal remedies and stuff like that.
You got 5 hours to listen to
her? I got all day, man. I'm not going anywhere. Let me clear my throat. Anyways, what do you guys think, including Eric in this, about the possibility of people actually going out and saying they're going to go look for Bigfoot, and then basically kind of making the stuff up in their head, in their mind, say hearing the hoot of a screech owl, or hearing the yip of a coyote, or the double track of a bear impression. What do you say to those people that don't have the experience in doing the type of investigative work that we have all done, and don't have like the law enforcement training or an EMT training, or a biologist training, military training type of a background, or even indigenous background, where we know how to read the signs and interpret the sounds and stuff, for the most part, 99% of the time. But to those times when people go out that are just fresh off the couch, going out there and doing investigations and claiming everything that they take pictures of has either a Bigfoot or a dog man in it. What do you say to that? Do you think that they could manifest something supernaturally? Like, I'm not saying a demon, but I'm saying maybe an elemental. Now, I know nobody really knows too much about elementals. Eric does, so maybe he'd be the best one to answer that. But I don't know. I'm curious to see what you guys think about the possibilities of self manifesting these encounters.
Well, real quick, and I'll let Melissa speak. I could attest to that firsthand, because as a kid growing up, we lived in a house that we knew was haunted. And a lot of it can be your imagination. And to drive that point home, to cement in my mind, One we lived. It was a three levels. We had a basement, main level, and a second level. We slept on the upper level. Bathroom was on the main floor of the house. One night I got up to go down to use the bathroom, and I was walking down the hallway to the uh, stairway to go down to the first level. I've seen shadows and stuff before, and could that be a figment? Yeah, maybe not. But I was so afraid that when I was walking down the hallway, big black scorpion manifested in front of me because of my feelings of being scared. And I was a kid, and I remember this like it was yesterday. I put my hand down in front of me, like to stop it from approaching me, and then it disappeared. Now, to me, that was a figment of my imagination because I manifested that. I didn't know what I was thinking about, but it appeared based on my feelings at the time. Now,
Mm-hmm.
there's other things I could get into with other stories, which we don't have time for that. That two or three people don't see and experience the same thing at the same time to be your imagination. And when it comes to getting out in the woods, they got to take baby steps. They got to get out there, get used to the environment. I'm by no means a wildlife expert like Daniel, okay, but I do know a lot about the wildlife in general. And I made a comment the other night with this other guest that when a lot of people go out in the woods, they're looking, but they're not seeing. Um, they want to go out there, they want to capture something, but they're not analyzing all the patterns and shadows and stuff like that and how it affects the mind and what you're seeing. And yes, I do think that a lot of them, when they see something they're not accustomed to seeing, that ferments in their mind to where, yeah, it's a Bigfoot or maybe a dog man, or they hear something they're not accustomed to hearing, like footsteps walking through the woods. Now, certain times of the year when you get dry leaves on the ground, deer, depending on how they're moving, and if those leaves are dry enough, if you're not accustomed to the different sounds they make when they walk, they can sound like footsteps. Now you got to put two and two together. Are they heavy footsteps? Are they light? Because deer walk
Mm-hmm.
light. A lot of times you ain't gonna know a deer is around if you're not accustomed to looking for them.
Exactly.
But you got to be analytical about things. I mean, it's fun. We go out to camp, camaraderie, get out in the wildlife, enjoy the wildlife. And while we're out there, we do the research, and we do take it serious. Don't get me wrong. But when you capture stuff, and she can tell you her story that we had out of Elkhorn Lake here a couple of years back, uh, things happen that you cannot pinpoint, put an answer to. And there's things that people, I think there's things out there the government knows to not telling people about. I really do. I mean, obviously, based on our backgrounds and stuff like that, just like the F-47 they're coming out with, if you've heard about that, with that new jet.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine flying that new jet with the pilot having full control of all of his ornaments? Yeah, he's got four wingmen of drones that he can control flying with him. That's going to be
Exactly.
awesome. That's a whole different category. But Melissa had an experience. I didn't, but I was in the same tent. I couldn't wake up. I was too tired. Uh, but I'll let her tell you about that right quick. I get another cup of coffee.
Okay.
All right.
First off, when you're new to going out in the woods, you need to take time to get used to the woods. Because the woods is going to smell different, it sounds different, it it feels different. And I like to go when I go in the woods, I like to close my eyes and just sit still and just listen. Take it in because it activates all those senses that you don't normally use. And you're
Mm-hmm.
able to start hearing things. You can hear the squirrels when they're rustling, you can hear them when they're chattering, you can hear the leaves when they're rustling with the light breeze, and you can tell if it's up on top of the tree or down towards the ground and stuff. And of course, when it's fall time, you're going to have all the leaves that are going to be making their own noises even as you walk. But he's right in that aspect that wildlife, they live in the woods. They know what it's like. So they're pretty much able to go through without detection. You can't hear them that well unless something's happening that's causing them to be more loud than normal. And I just, I grew up in the woods. I grew up around the woods. Our house was surrounded by woods where I lived at in Virginia, here in Virginia. And I love it. To me, it's the most relaxing thing. And yes, I like to go look for herbs and stuff. I like going looking for the plants and all. Sometimes I can get over focused on that instead of paying attention to some of my surroundings because I feel so comfortable in the woods. But
Mm-hmm.
if there's something that is, what's the word I'm looking for? Yes, out of the ordinary, because the birds, the wildlife, everything suddenly gets silent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you really need to start paying attention. You just freeze
Yeah.
and you just look around, see what's going on, see what you're feeling and stuff. If you've got a negative feeling, back up. Get
Yeah,
out of that
the best adaptive camouflage that I've found with any type of wildlife is just to remain still,
area. Mm-hmm.
you know, and deer do it, foxes do it, birds do it. They'll remain completely still, and then your visual perspective of them completely changes and or disappears completely. And I think that's what causes a lot of the misconception of Bigfoot going into a portal. Now, I'm not saying the portal theory isn't, a viable theory. I've dealt with portals myself. You guys have seen it firsthand, and we've talked about it several times. Eric and David and Melissa and I, right here on the property, and I've got video of it, as a matter of fact, that I could post too, and I have posted on Facebook. But I really believe that the majority of people that haven't had an actual encounter with wildlife out there, any type of wildlife, whether it's a deer or a bear or a wolf or a coyote, heck, even a wolverine. Around here we have these tales of mountain lions and black panthers, and you guys know those tales, David and Melissa, from where you're at down there. It's pretty predominant in the area, and I just, I encapsulate all that together because if you haven't had a wildlife encounter before you have like a cryptid encounter, your senses are going to go completely out of whack, and you're not going to be able to really compare or judge visually, sense wise, what you smell, what you taste in your mouth and your saliva, all that, from the encounter. And your ability to reflect on that encounter is going to be a lot more severe and lack in detail, or you're going to exaggerate it. What do you guys think about that?
Yes. When you're in tune with what's going out there, I'm not going to try to sound philosophical or anything like that, but I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. You're seeing, but you're not seeing. You're looking, but you're not seeing. And again, all that you got to get into that comfort zone. Even the experts, when they come across something, many of them for the first time, uh, they lose basic they lose basically track of what they were out there for anyway because the fear takes over, and it's it's hard to explain unless you live the life. Like Eric been in the military and stuff, you were in the military and stuff like that. If you can learn to control your fear, um, and use it to your advantage, your senses are going to be heightened more. You're going to be able to rationalize more. Time is going to slow down. You're not going to panic. Uh, but if you can get over that, and the only way you're going to be able to do that is to get out there in the woods and not once or twice a year, but get out there to where you become part of it, so to speak. You can use all of that to your advantage as far as being able to stay calm, rationalize about what you're looking at. Uh, I mean, I find it amazing watching these TV shows and stuff like these ghost hunting shows that tickles me to death. They're out there looking for ghosts. If something happens, what do? They run them back. They take off.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're there looking, why the heck you turn around and run? That don't make any sense to me. I know it's TV. I know it's.
Yeah, you try to invite it to come, and then as soon as it decides to make its presence known, then they take off. Run, dude, run!
I mean, just like Eric, I watched what he put on when he did that one investigation. I can't remember exactly where it was, but he was picking up sounds and stuff like that. But he kept his calm. You know, he was listening to it. He was rational about what he was hearing, and he didn't get overexcited and start yelling and whatnot and running out the back door and everything else. But I want to get his viewpoint on some of this as far as what we're talking about.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot to it, but there's not. You just got to get out there and do it. And if you do come across somebody that's new at it, you got to keep your calm too, trying to explain things. Be rational with it. Because if you get upset, they're going to get upset. They're going to think you're not believing what they're seeing or hearing, and that may not be the case. But you're just trying to bring in the rationalization point of view to get them to see why it may not be. Now, if you come across something that's going to make you go, you know, I mean, you got something. But you got to take baby steps with people that get it out there that's new. And I'm not going to mention names of some that would go out. They go out and buy all this equipment, but yet they don't put it together and learn the equipment until they get to the woods. You can't operate that way. I mean, it's
Daniel.
I said we're going to mention any names. Daniel's a great guy. We work together.
Yeah, he is.
Like and I teach him things, and he's taught us a lot of stuff out there. He's been doing this a lot longer than we have out there looking for Bigfoot. So I want to get Eric's point of view on.
And then he buys things. Daniel buys things, and then David thinks he has to buy things too. Oh my gosh!
I got one more thing to get to that parabolic, and I'm going to order that here probably next week or the week after. I got everything I need after that.
I love my parabolic. Yeah, I love my parabolic when it comes to Bigfooting, because I mean there is some disadvantages to it. If it's windy or rainy, sadly it drowns out any vocals that you're going to catch. But on a good day or a good night, I mean, look what I caught on mine. About a month ago, that was all caught on a parabolic. That chatter, the talking, everything that was caught on a parabolic. I mean, it's, I think, a crucial tool. Sorry if I'm looking like a robot. As you can tell, I have taco meat back there, and I've got rat dog arms. So I'm not very mobile at the moment. So far as Bigfoot and being in the woods with sound, you're absolutely correct. And, I'm sorry if I'm going to hurt some people's feelers, but I might hurt some feelers here in a minute. City folk get scared as hell in the woods. If you're not raised in the woods, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be mean to nobody. It's just the damn truth. I've seen it time and time again. You get a city person out in the woods, they freak out at a deer turd dropping on the ground. I mean, oh God, I'm coming out. No, that's a deer pooping. It just,
another thing I found out too, Eric, is when they hear acorns fall from a tree, they always assume that it's a rock being thrown at them from Bigfoot, and it's amazing. Stuff like that. Yeah, go ahead, Eric. Keep on going. This is great.
9 times out of 10, you will not hear a deer. 9 times out, unless they're running from something, that is about the time you're going to hear a deer. A lot of times when people think they're hearing deer walking, that's a squirrel. A squirrel sounds like a damn herd of buffalo going through the woods.
Yes, they do. Especially when you're hunting for deer.
Yeah, they love it. I mean, they'll climb up my tree stand with me and stare at me. It's like, who the hell is this? And I'll just stare at them, and they'll stare at me, and then all of a sudden I'll go and watch them shit and jump off my tree stand. I've had them on my shoulder. I mean, coons the same way. I mean, a coon will come right down out of the tree into your tree stand with you, and usually that's when you're going. You don't want to be in a tree stand with a coon. But, I mean, you're going to see a lot of this stuff. A fox, you won't hear a fox. I mean, a fox, you'll catch a glimpse of them. I mean, it's usually, if they stop and look at you, that's rare, because they're like, holy shit, humans here, we're gone. So foxes are that way. I mean, I've caught glimpses of foxes. I've had foxes stop and stare at me. But anything predatory wise, I've been hunted by cougars. And I can tell you now, anything that hunts, you're not going to see it. You're not going to hear it. It's just
Yeah.
that's the plain Jane truth of it.
Not unless you get all
yeah. I mean, and I get lost in my woods all the time. You know, I love my woods. I know my woods. I know the energy of my woods. I know the vibration of my woods. I know everything about my woods. I love my woods. And I mean, I'll do the same thing Melissa does. I'll just go out there, you know, just not even think about it. Just get caught up in the moment. And then all of a sudden I'll be like, something ain't right. You just get that energy. I mean, that shift in that energy. And that's when you go, okay, assess the situation. This is what I feel. This is what I got going on. Then you start taking in your terrain. What looks different? What looks out of place? I mean, this is steps you got to take, because it could be something big and hairy, or it could be something mediocre and hairy coming after you. One of the two things, generally. You know, we got bears, we got wolves, we got coyotes, we got cougars, we got bobcats. All this stuff is predatory stuff. Now, a bobcat's going to run from you. On four legs, yeah. A bobcat's going to run from you. A coyote's going to run from you, and a wolf will most likely run from you. A cougar's going to stalk you. Bear will run from you. So, about what I got here, about the only thing that's really going to stalk you is a cougar, unless it's a tall, hairy thing. I mean, that could be Dogman, that could be Bigfoot. And my experiences here, they generally stay out of sight. They stay where they can see you, but you can't see them. That's been my experiences when I'm out in the woods. It's usually energy. I can feel it's like I always say, your thoughts soar through the air like arrows, and everything picks up on those thoughts. Well, that's what you're picking up on a lot of times when you're dealing with cryptids out in these woods, and people don't pick up on that. They think, I'm going to go out here and I'm going to snap a picture of Bigfoot. 99.9% of the time, you ain't going to snap a picture but a shadow or a stump off in the distance that looks weird. You know, that's going to be pretty much it.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to break anybody's heart, but that's just the damn truth of it. Unless they want to reveal themselves, or you just have that eureka moment, you're not going to catch a picture of them. You're not.
Exactly.
You'll catch smell.
Exactly. Now, what's one thing that I've always told people too, that when they come to me with their encounters and stuff in the woods, I always ask them, how often do you get out into the woods? First off, you know, and secondly, you know, what were you like wanting to experience that day? You know, because I see a lot of this stuff with self-manifestation, and I'm really big on self-manifestation. I've been doing it ever since I've been diagnosed with cancer, and in ceremony we do it. And you know, I really believe that we have such abilities within us spiritually to do things. And I've talked about that numerous times on my podcast over the last 5 years, that you know, we have that energy field around us that we can manipulate and play with. And you know, the way I always tell people, you know, before you even go into the woods, take off your socks and your shoes, curl up your toes into the ground, feel that dirt and those leaves and those twigs and that grass underneath your feet and in between your toes. Get that feeling. Go up and walk up to a tree, put your hand on the tree and just sit there or stand there for a couple minutes and just close your eyes and feel that heartbeat of the tree. You know, there's so many ways that you can ground yourself before going into the forest and the mountains, that you can open up yourself to experience a lot more if you do that. Now, that's a Native American thing, and a lot of people just think that's a bunch of bull. But, you know, when you have people going out and saying, oh, I saw a skinwalker, you know, that was a skinwalker, it had to have been, you know, or I saw a rake, or I saw the siren head, you know, and all this other crap. The best one yet is the one with the deer antlers and the deer skull on the head, calling it a Wendigo. I love that one. Okay, because to me, It's like going into a haunted house, and I've done hundreds of those investigations. You know, haunted amusement parks, haunted houses, haunted asylums. I've done it all. Okay, so I've been there. I've done all that, and you don't go into a place and go, "That's demonic," or "That's demonic," or "This is demonic." You know, that's exactly what's happening out in the woods. People are going, "Oh, that's a Wendigo," or "That's a skinwalker," or "That's a rake," or "That's got to be Bigfoot." Without the evidence, without seeing it, feeling it, and and experiencing it with all five senses. And when I mean all five senses, you're gonna have such a way of just a wave of just disbelief that you're experiencing what you're experiencing. Okay, and it's going to flood you, and it's going to flood every sense that you have, because every sense you have is going to automatically be heightened. It's going to like turn up from a 50% to 110% volume. And people just don't want to. I don't know if they
Okay.
don't want to understand that, or they don't want to believe that, but it's true. Okay, the best thing you can do is like Melissa said and Eric said, go out there, and just be basically quiet and just take it all in, and get experience by listening to the sounds before you go out looking for Bigfoot. Get experience going out and camping overnight somewhere without traffic noise and city lights and all that, and sit out in the dark. Even without a campfire, get used to those sounds. Get used to the twigs snapping, because there's a raccoon several yards away crawling on a tree branch, or you know listen to the
Armadillo.
acorns falling. Yeah, you listen to everything around you and experience that before you go out looking for something that you have no idea what you're looking for.
That's what
I mean,
gets a lot of people upset. And I don't want to say upset. The fear factor comes in because when they get away from their norm, sitting on the couch, drinking coffee, watching TV shows, being on the phone 24/7, then they go out and do stuff like that. They get out of their norm. That can be overwhelming for a lot of people. But if they
mhm,
take your advice and do exactly that, to relax, feel what's around you, because you'll be surprised, even at nighttime. If you just sit out there in the dark, you can have a campfire going if you want, I guess, or whatever. But you can absorb a lot of that energy from the woods, and that can actually
exactly,
be felt if you give your body and your mind a chance to experience something like that. We keep
exactly.
bringing
and
up.
and
We
and
keep bringing
David, you
real
and
quick.
you and Eric know firsthand from tracking and hunting and all that, and military background, that what you look for is more than just impressions on the ground when you're tracking something. You're looking for that overturned leaf that's different from all the others. You're looking for that leaf on a green branch
Yeah.
of a tree that's twisted a certain way, different from others, to show you which way a person walked through and brushed up against the branch. You're looking for all kinds of different sign. It's more than just looking at a footprint on the ground. Exactly, and there's so much more that's entailed in it. Camo Dad, you know what I'm talking about. I know you know what I'm talking about. And people just don't understand that it can get complex, and if they're not prepared for it. Hi, Tanya, good to see you. If they're not prepared for it, then they're not going to be able to interpret what they're finding. That's
Well,
just my concern.
a good example of that is, uh, especially for those who've been in the military, when you go out and set up an OP. For those that don't know what an OP is, it's an observation post. Uh,
Mhm.
you're put out at an OP for a couple of 3-4 hours at a time, and there's a reason for that. You get acquainted and to know the area that you're observing. You subconsciously know what those patterns are within a few minutes, and if something starts to enter your area that shouldn't be there, you will immediately be able to distinguish something's out of the ordinary, where it's a new pattern in the environment or whatever the case may be. But I don't want to get long winded on that. But we keep bringing up being in the military background and law enforcement and stuff. But 80% of what we talk about from that can be learned by anybody. It just takes time. It takes a little bit of research. If you take a recorder with you, you may not know what it is, but you can record sounds, come back and look it up on the internet and YouTube and stuff like that, and try to match that sound up with something that's already been pre-recorded. Me and Daniel one night had trouble figuring out with this one sound that sounded almost like a monkey, but it wasn't. Daniel sent me the recording to it because he's the one that actually got that recording. I got to looking on YouTube, and it turned out to be, I think it was a not a barn owl, but I can't think. It was an owl. I can't think the exact name of it right off the top of my head. It come to me in a little bit, but it turned out to be an owl that makes that exact same sound. But if you don't know that, you're going to think it's going to be something other than something natural. You're going to be thinking it might be Bigfoot or something other paranormal. But anybody can learn it. All you got to do is take the time if you're going to get out there, learn what's going on, and you ain't going to learn it overnight. Enjoy what you're doing and learn in the meantime, and broaden your horizons. And you might be that lucky one sometime to get the actual proof. We may never get the actual proof based on my thoughts and stuff, because I think there's something there. I think there's multiple. You can't dismiss anything. Be it.
Well, I'm going to put up a couple photographs for you guys to look at and to interpret in your own way. Eric probably has seen some of these before, but some of them I don't think he has. Maybe he has. But the first one's a trail cam picture, and I want to get everybody's opinion on them, including their opinion in the chat. And this is going to be kind of like a Q&A type of a quiz, basically, okay? To see what the mind sees and the eyes interpret with the mind. So here's the trail cam picture.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah. What do you think that could be?
Ghillie suit, man in a suit.
Yeah. It looks fake.
A type, not actual ghillie suit, but yeah, dressed up.
They're supposed to be looking.
And
at
the eyes are too glass-like.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. You can tell the eyes are black. Yeah.
This actual picture was set up on a guy's property, and that is actually a fake suit. First off, what you're going to look for, everybody, and this is from my own experience with interacting and having all these encounters myself with the big guy and his family, is you're going to look for arm length. Okay, you want to compare arm length and leg length. The legs are going to be shorter than the arms, believe it or not, or very close to being exactly the same. A human's hands will not go down to their knees if they're standing upright, okay, unless they are a deformed human or they're part Sasquatch, okay? It's just not going to happen. So you look for the arm length, and you look for the head rotation, okay? When I dealt with a lot of my encounters, when they never really rotate just their head. They shift their whole torso, okay, at the waist to turn and look, okay? So you have to understand that if you're seeing something where it's just turning its head like this and looking at the camera or looking at a person, odds are you're looking at somebody in a suit, okay? Now, when you have poor pixelation in a camera like this one here, this is probably what, a 10 megapix, camera. I mean, it's definitely
possibly a crop, because you lose resolution when you crop on those type of cameras.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of different things you can actually discover when I've never really experienced a Bigfoot encounter where they have a beer belly, okay? And I'm going to put it out there to you, I've never experienced seeing a Bigfoot with a beer belly. Okay. It's not like they're going to a kegger. Okay. So, I have seen pregnant female Bigfoot, not up close, far away, probably about 100 yards through a binocular, but I've seen it, and it looks more natural, like when a woman's pregnant. Okay, it's going to be held higher up. It's not going to be held down by the groin area. Okay, so I've seen that. There's several things. Unless you know what to look for, you can't really interpret that what you're seeing is real. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's hard to explain to people that just don't get out there and do it. And I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to make people feel like they shouldn't be out there. I don't want to scare them. But when you see something like this walking in a distance, that's when you start to wonder. Okay.
Yeah.
And you start to get scared, and your adrenaline starts to rush, and you get that quietness of the forest around you, because it's a predatory response that wildlife is telling you, hey, human, hey, dumbass, get your head out of your ass. You are in danger. Okay.
Look at
That's why the forest goes silent. Okay. And if people don't understand that, they think that it's because Bigfoot's in the area and he's doing some kind of Spock mind meld with them. And it's not that at all. It's a predatory instinct to quiet down and to stay still until the predator leaves the area. Okay. It happens all the time. So, especially when you're coming up against something like this.
Whoa, you can see a lot of detail, even the ear,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
eyebrow,
That is
nostrils.
that is a picture of an actual sighting. Okay, this is what I experienced most of the time. Okay, literally most of the time. The actual skin pigmentation on it, you couldn't tell if it was skin pigmentation or if it was some type of soot from a fire, from a campfire, or what it was across the skin. But around the eyes and the nose, especially, was anywhere from a grayish to a black color. Okay. Now, to me, that's probably not skin pigmentation, because if they live in caves, like everybody says, they're going to be more pale than they are darker skin tone, because they're going to have less light. Okay.
Mhm.
So that's one thing we got to consider. Okay. Now, does that mean that they're living above ground? Maybe some of these family units that I interacted with did live above ground. Maybe there wasn't cave systems that were big enough for them to traverse, which is true. It could possibly happen. So yes, they could have an account for like us Native Americans being called the red man. When the white man came to the Great Plains and saw us, they saw us as basically black people. You know, we were so dark that we actually either had dark red skin or black skin because of the sun. Okay, and we got used to it. Okay, that's just the way of it. That is natural evolution, and it happens every day out in the woods. But if you're coming up against something like this, you're going to react a certain way, and it's not, odds are you're either going to be completely in shock and run away, um, out of fear, or you're going to stand there and wet your pants. Okay, that's literally the truth, guys. Okay, literally the truth. Okay, I stood my ground when I was a child because I was taught to stand my ground, but I was also taught the respectful way to approach it. Okay, to not disrespect them. Telekinesis communication, that is a skill. That is a gift. And, unless you do it consecutively and repetitively over a period of time, it's like any other skill, like riding a bike. If you don't ride a bike every now and then, you're going to lose the ability to keep your balance and stay focused on how to control the bike. It's the same thing. Okay. Your mind is going to interpret things. It's going to experience growth throughout your entire life. Okay. And what I always tell people is, even when they're doing energy work and chi work and working with their electromagnetic field around them, you take your hands and you just encompass your hands and you hold it like it's a melon or a basketball in front of you, and you can feel the heat from your energy. Okay. It's the same thing with your mind. The more you exercise your mind with doing certain things, the better you're going to get at it. Okay. And the more you're going to be able to control the mind's functions and the ability to interpret what your eyes are seeing. Okay. So we have to keep that in mind. Okay. Now, a lot of these pictures, people would look at them and scoff at them. But the first one, is definitely
it's fake.
a fake. Yeah, it's definitely a fake. Okay. And like Eric was saying about the eyes, there's little things that when you're an experiencer and you have your first encounter, and maybe that's why they send the young ones out first and the elderly, because they want the young ones to experience, okay, and gain experience from interacting with things on their own. Okay. That's why the alpha, I believe, stays way in the back, just like a wolf pack, observing the family unit. Okay. From a distance to protect them. Okay. That's why you hear a lot of accounts of, yeah, that's why you hear a lot of accounts of the Bigfoot that you're encountering screeching for another one or crying for another one to come, because the one that you're encountering the action with is not the dominant one. It's not the protector of the unit. It's calling the protector in. Okay. Plain and simple. Yes, exactly like an Overwatch bounty. You are correct. 100%.
I'm a firm believer that they have, not only do they have the Alpha Watch and everything, but they have the scouts, the lookouts, the LPOPs. They send out LPOPs, and LPOPs watch over the area where the main family group's going, to kind of like a meerkat. You got one meerkat's always looking. LPOP. I believe they have LPOPs.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, when you go out to the woods, you wanna go out and don't even think about having an encounter with a cryptid. Okay, if you're gonna have one, it's gonna happen. Okay, if you go out looking for it 90% of the time, you're not gonna have it. Okay, because some people say that they know that you're looking for them and they're gonna avoid you and all that. The odds are you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Okay. Because like native people, they've learned from us and we've learned from them over the hundreds and hundreds of years, is the fact that we follow game. We follow inclement weather patterns. Okay. When it's torrential rain outside and thunder and lightning, you're not going to find a 9-foot cryptid creature standing next to a tree in the middle of the woods. I'm sorry, you're not. They're going to seek shelter, okay? And they're going to stay in that shelter until the weather clears up, okay? So these are all factors you need to entail whenever you plan on going out. Check your weather patterns. Get an update as best as you can on the game being prevalent in the area. If there's game in the area, there's all kinds of things that you can do. when you go to a location, make sure that there's water on the location. Make sure that there's some way for them to have shelter on the location, some game on the location. No people on the location. That's a big one, because they're going to stay as on the high ridges or in the cave systems to avoid people flat out. Okay, they will. Okay, and they like to observe people from a distance. Okay, and this is just my experience. Okay, it could be totally different for somebody else. Okay, Roger Moorhead, he had different experiences. Daniel has different experience. We all have different experience with some similarities. But my point is, like we said in the beginning, you're going to go out, you're going to not even bother looking for him. Okay, don't look for Bigfoot, don't look for Dog Man, don't look for the Wendigo, for God's sakes, or a skinwalker in the woods, or a rake. Okay, because odds are you're going to manifest something. Okay, and you don't want to. Okay, because anything that you manifest is going to stay attached to you. Okay, you're going to take that home. You know, I don't know how long Dave and Melissa have been into the paranormal aspect and investigations of it, but I know Eric and I have been in it for a while. I've been in it for God knows. The first investigation I did when I was 16 years old. So that shows you, and I'm 60 now. So, it's
Well,
been a
we
long
couldn't get
time.
into any investigations really until we got hit the retirement age, because being in our field, you got to worry about job security. You get out talking about that stuff all the time and whatnot, and try to live that lifestyle. It could really hamper your careers, so to speak. Maybe not so much nowadays, but back during our time frame, it would. So you pretty much stay quiet, and you got your thoughts, your likes, dislikes, and beliefs, and what your experiences are, but you pretty much keep them to yourself. Eric may have experienced
Exactly.
that stuff when he was in, as far as that, and you too. You just don't go out there and start talking about it. Because I know what I had, you had to maintain security clearances. And if somebody starts to question, well, maybe he might not need no security clearance because he's over here doing and talking about this stuff. That's just another factor being, from days past as far as what you got to worry about. But now we can get into it more and actually put our efforts. I mean, she's working the Krispy Kreme. What, she can't make donuts because she's talking about a ghost? Nah, they'll let her continue to work here as far as that. But it's pretty
Yeah.
interesting with the
Well,
way things change. But
Yeah.
the bad side about the military, it's much like the law enforcement too. If you want them top secret clearances, you want them other clearances, you can't talk about knowing this stuff or believing in this
Keep your
stuff. You have
mouth
to keep it
shut.
secret.
Yep. Exactly. Got to keep that mouth shut. Yep. Exactly.
Now, another thing,
Exactly.
another thing I think is very important if you're going out looking for Bigfoot is you need to have a positive energy. If you go out there like you're the Barney badass, you're the biggest dude on the block, you're the head rooster of the hen house, you're either not going to see something or you're going to have a very bad day. You can't go out there with the mentality. You got to go out there totally calm. What's the best with flat? I mean, I guess I don't know how to put it. Just you need to be calm. You need to be just there. You're not going, hey, I'm looking for Bigfoot. It's, hey, look at this tree. I feel the spirit of this tree. You got to be connected. You got to be calm. If you go in there, like you're the talk of the walk, you're not going to get anything done.
Exactly. Exactly. And then you encompass Native American legends on top of it, with a lot of the encounters, like I talked about in the beginning, with elementals, I tell people all the time, please don't go out in the woods and smack the side of a tree with a stick. I mean, that is the yes, it's an old trick, but it's they don't, it's not, you're ringing a dinner bell is what you're doing. Okay. Pretty much. Okay. You go out there and you smack a tree in the dark out there in the middle of nowhere, and you're calling in every predator around to come check out that noise. Okay. irregardless if it's Bigfoot, Dogman, or whatnot out there. Okay, a mountain lion's going to come check it out. A wolf pack is going to come check it out. Coyotes are going to come check it out. Okay, because they're going to think that it's it's some kind of game, and that's their next meal. Okay, don't go out there and smack the side of a tree. Okay, because first off, what you're doing is it's a medicine man trick, and it's a druid trick. Okay, you're calling forth the spirit of that tree, and if you don't have a viable enough question for that elemental coming out of the tree to answer your request because you knocked on their door, and that's pretty much what you're doing, you're going to be in a world of hurt. Okay, these elementals, they are real. Okay, everything that native people do, indigenous people do around the world, is they walk with a reverence for the land. They walk with a respect for everything, because everything is connected. Okay, it's like Chief Seattle. Yeah, it's like Chief Seattle said. We're all connected in the web of life. What we do to the web, we do to ourselves. Plain and simple. That's the truth of it. Okay, so you gotta go out with that respect, like Eric was saying, and like Melissa was saying earlier, that quietness, that calmness, and not don't be expecting to have an encounter every time you go out, because 90% of the times when investigators go out, nothing happens. Okay, and you're talking investigators that have been in the field for years and years and years. Okay, unless you are interacting with a specific family unit, you're not going to have those encounters every time you go out. Okay, you're going to have them once in a great while. Okay, so I don't know. I just, there's so much I want people to understand. Maybe you guys, Eric and David and Melissa, you can give other people more advice too on how to go about it. Okay, I'm going to take a break. I'm having a hard time breathing right now. So,
well, one other thing I want to bring up too
guys.
is you were talking about nature as far as going quiet, where there could be something predatory in the area. And on the flip side of that, a lot of times nature will talk to you too. Because when if you learn their alarm, the way they give alarms for their own kind, that's something out of the ordinary or may be a threat to them, they have their own warning system. And sometimes they may go quiet after that. They may leave the area. So if you learn how they operate, and you're only going to do that by getting out there, I just pay attention to your surroundings. Do you have a lot of, they're used to people being there and whatnot. All of a sudden, you hear a crow really squawking really loudly in the background. All of a sudden, things go quiet. You may want to pay attention to that area. Basically, I'm trying to give you a gist of what I'm trying to say as far as that. Nature will talk to you too, as far as that. If something's out of the ordinary, where something predatory. I'm going to say it's a predatory aspect. It could be a bear. It could be a snake crawling through the limbs of a tree or something like that. I mean, you just got to pay attention to the area and see what comes up or see what will manifest.
Exactly. A good way that I always learned when I was a child in the woods, when there was a predator around, was listen to the squirrels.
Right.
Squirrels, right?
Listen to the squirrels. The squirrels are going to chatter like you've never heard them chatter before, and that's the and they're going to tell you what predators in the sky above them, because that's where most of their predators come from, is from the sky, and picks them off, like the owl or the hawk. So there's certain things that you need to understand before you go out in the woods, and listen for, like David just said.
Another thing I want to touch on real quick. Go ahead, Eric.
Something else to consider: when you're in the woods, you don't want to wear white. Crow does not like white, and crow will raise hell if you got white in the woods. You don't want to wear white. I don't know what it is about that color. That's one way that I track deer, is I listen to the crow. because when the deer are alert, they got the white, what we call a white flag up. That means their tail's up in the air because their ass is white. So their tail's up in the air. Well, the crows go nuts when you hear that. So that's one of the things when I'm tracking deer is I'm listening for the crow, because the crow's going to tell me where the deer are. Quit.
Yep.
Sorry, I've got 3 animals acting like buttheads right now.
But yeah, you got to get out there and get used to all that stuff, and you're not going to get it from sitting on the couch. If you really have the interest of getting out there, just for the aspect of exploring alone, enjoying nature, wildlife, you got to get out there and do it, and learn what's out there, and just take it all in stride. And if you want to take your shoes off, like William says, to really feel the ground. I grew up barefooted pretty much, being from Kentucky. Nothing against Kentuckians, but I know we had shoes. I'm just trying to a little bit. We had shoes. We got flip flops last year, so I mean they're doing pretty good in Kentucky. But just
that's
enjoy
another thing too. Yeah, that's another thing too, David, is well, you know, the whole shoe thing. Do you when we were kids like you, I used to run around barefoot all the time. Okay. And you know, what people don't understand is when you wear shoes, it stops that connection, that spiritual connection to things. Okay, that energy that you draw off of the earth, off of Mother Earth, and it's part of that electromagnetic field that is around the human body. Okay, we are weakening that field by wearing shoes all the time when we're outside. And I'm not saying run around outside in the middle of 4-foot deep snow and all that, which I've done. But, you know, I'm just saying that, you know, when you have a chance to make that connection again, do it, you know, take advantage of it and do it. And you're going to realize that the better you're going to feel, first off, physically, because it affects you spiritually and physically. And the more grounded you're going to be to experience paranormal things. Okay, so keep that into consideration too when you want to experience things.
There's a comment that popped up a little bit ago. I don't think anybody's ever really touched. I'll have to get William's viewpoint on this. Talking about plants. I think it's been scientifically proven plants will feed off of the environment. They will feed off your feelings. I've seen programs to where they feed off of paranormal, the good, the bad, as far as they're vibrant or not. Is that something you can pay attention to also while you're out in the woods, as far as is the vegetation? I don't think Bigfoot would have a thing to do it, but like other types of cryptid paranormal stuff, to where if you come up, or it could be environmental, but what's the possibility of plants cueing you into what that area is about, to put it plainly?
Right, exactly. And you know, that's one of the things that that indigenous people have learned over the years, is to watch the flora and, you know, around you, to watch the reaction of trees. You know, you can tell when a storm's coming in because the leaves of a tree are going to turn upside down, you know, and you know, there's so many different things to watch out for. And I also tell people too that if you want to have an encounter, you're going to want to have an encounter once you're versed enough to know that you're able enough to have the encounter, because you're going to go through all kinds of weird feelings and stuff when you have an encounter. Your heart's going to be racing. Your eyes aren't going to, you know, your mind's not going to believe what your eyes are seeing. You're going to try and rationalize it and all that. You know, the whole motion stuff. Okay. But what you want to do is basically, how do I want to say this? You want to watch the signs. Okay. You want to make sure that when you go into a location, first off, make make sure there's a lot of evergreens, a lot of pine trees around, trees that keep their green all year round, because that's where they're going to, if there's no cave systems and all that, that's where they're going to be bedding down at and finding protection from the wind and the rain and stuff. Okay. That's what we did as Native people when we were out on hunts for weeks at a time. You know, we would always look for pine trees to get underneath and just, have our own little shelter underneath the pine tree. And underneath the pine tree, I don't know if anybody knows this that lives in the city, when you get underneath them and it's a pine needle bed, it's so soft and it smells so good that you're not going to want to get up, pretty much. Okay. So, they're going to want the same
something
thing.
to think about. Something to think about. Some of the best subbedding you can have out in nature, and animals use this as well. Like we have a lot of cedar trees out here, which is same concept as a pine, but cedars cover more of an area, so they're more warm. A lot of times you'll find deer laying in there. I like to lay in there in the wintertime. Have 2 inches, at least 2 inches of cedar needles or pine needles underneath where you're going to lay down. It's one of the best insulators from the ground that you can have.
Exactly.
And it's insect resistant. Insects don't like them.
Yeah, exactly. And these are all things that people. Okay, go ahead, David.
These monsters are wanting out.
Okay, David, go ahead and tell us what you think about the whole pine tree thing. Do you believe it's a viable theory? Because I've experienced a lot around pine trees.
I never really thought about that until you just brought it up, and I'm glad that comment was on there about the plants, because I never really brought the vegetation aspect into it as far as if it could be telltale signs of what that area might be about. So I'm glad that comment came up. That gives me another thing to look at while we're out in the woods too, because I'm out looking for tracks, structures, the common things you talk about. Anything out of the ordinary like that, but plants, it did not cross my mind before. I knew they were susceptible to feelings and the environment around them, but I've never put that factor into play when it comes to being out in the woods. I'm glad that comment came up, because you're always learning. I just learned something from that and something else to incorporate while we're out there when I'm out walking around. But yeah, vegetation and stuff like that. If Bigfoot and even the others, if they're out there, if they are as intelligent as we believe them to be, they're going to camouflage themselves. There could be cave systems out there and you will walk right by it. And if they're in there resting, sleeping, or whatever, they might cover that hole up. You'll never know what's there, and you won't even see it. You can walk right by one out in the open. If you're looking but not seeing, you may not see it and walk right by it. That happened to me in Panama one time when we was trying to catch some thieves out there robbing people at one of the Venado Beach. And I took my patrol dog out there, and we got inside of a bush about maybe 4 or 5 foot diameter, and we set along 3 trails that intersected with each other, and hoping they'd come by. Well, sure enough, about an hour later, 3 of them come walking by one of the trails. And me and my dog was in that bush, and they did not see or hear us in that bush. Not that we were making sounds, but they were within 3 to 4 feet. And if that could happen to me with 3 people walking by, imagine what you're walking by out there in the woods and you're not even seeing it.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
Exactly.
It's amazing. And if you don't train your mind to that, like I'm saying, they're looking, but they're not seeing, you got to get out there and do it. And then your mind will adapt. When she got me into rock cutting, and I still ain't forgave her for that, because I bought some rock tumblers, just not to change the subject any. But when she got me out there, she's always been a rock cat. I was picking up every rock I could see to put in the tumbler. I got tired of that. But during that aspect, by doing it, I learned what to look for that would possibly tumble to make a nice shiny rock. Even regular riverbed rock, stuff like that would make nice rocks. But again, it's training your mind of what you're looking at and what to expect. If you don't do it, you're not going to learn it. About a month later, I got tired of picking up all these rocks. I learned, my mind adapted what to look for, patterns and stuff, and it turned out all right. But I mean, yeah, she got me into that. I'll never forgive her for that. But that's another aspect. We incorporate things when we're out there in the woods. Our
You gotta
sole
think,
purpose ain't to find Bigfoot. We go out there, we enjoy ourselves, we act normal, we do things. One day she went out looking for plants, and she had me, Daniel, Ron, and everybody else looking for her for 2 hours because she lost track of what she was doing, looking for rocks, not plants, and she went off on her own. We looked for a couple of hours. Now I'm gonna have her carry a radio when she goes, one of my walkie-talkies. So she gets
Put a
2
beacon
hours
on her.
Yeah, 2 hours we look for. Yeah, I'll never forget that day. And all of
Get
us
her
out
one
there
of those.
"Oh, I'm looking for rocks."
Get her one of those plastic fireman helmets that have the red light on top.
Yeah, but
Somebody the other night suggested one of them Apple tag things.
you got to think. So, I mean, if you're wanting to give a gift to a Bigfoot, a rock is something that is something from nature, something they value, and there's been plenty of reports where they like them nice, pretty rocks. They've also been known to gift people nice, pretty rocks. So that's something to keep in mind too when you're talking about them rocks. That's something else.
And you
well,
remember,
I'm gonna tell her now. Stay out of my tumbled rocks. If you want to put out tumbled shiny rocks, you tumble your
I
own.
like
and
them
take 'em out
better
there.
raw myself, but that's just me.
Because my rocks are coming up missing out. Thanks, Eric.
You remember a couple years ago when we were at Elkhorn and we made those rock stacks on that log,
Yeah.
and Ron and them and Dale Thacker and all them. And I had found a rock. It was an ordinary rock, but it had one piece of white quartz in it. And I put that at the very top of my rock stack. And we came back a few days later, or actually Dale did, not us. Dale did a few days later, and that rock was gone. That rock with that white quartz in it was gone, and in its place by the log was, it looked like a braided wreath. It was braided vines. It had been braided.
It took
definitely took opposable thumbs to be able to braid
it took thumbs to be
and
able
it
to do
was
that.
left kind of in its place. And that was, we still have the photo somewhere around here because Dale had
That's
sent us
what
a
I
picture
tell
of it.
people too. Is I tell people, a lot of people, they have to understand, they don't want you to gift them a candy bar. They don't want you to gift them a donut. I mean, as good as donuts are, you can gift me as many donuts as you want, but they want what they interact with on a daily basis. They're going to want herbs. They're going to want feathers. They're going to want intricate designs woven in grapevine, that kind of stuff, because that's what they're used to. That's, you can leave them the shiny things like a marble and stuff like that, but odds are they're not going to take it because it has no practical use. It really doesn't. If it doesn't have a practical use for them, they won't pick it up. Okay.
Yeah, they prefer stuff that's within their environment. I mean, there's been times where we've been out, in the woods, hiking, looking around, and we come back and there's a single solitary feather just out of the blue, just parked on a rock or parked on a stump or something, or a tree log, that's fallen. And, you take it as a gift, but you always try to leave them something else. And that's one thing I do, is I like to leave rocks. And I try to look for a really nice rock that I think would be nice. And that's how I gift. I don't gift all the time, but I'm not going to go take a jar of peanut butter and leave it out, because you're going to invite the other wildlife, because that smell is going to draw them in too. Don't leave apples and stuff like that out, because a lot of times the other wildlife's going to eat it. But if you're so strung out on it being Bigfoot, that's what you're going to think, that Bigfoot did it. He took it. I mean, they took it, but it could have been a squirrel, because squirrels like apples. They like that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Real quick, tell them, without getting long-winded with it, the experience you had at Elkhorn, where you thought you might have been hit with that infrasound. I want to get their take on that.
Okay.
And then I'll give my 2 cents after that.
It was back in 2023. It was in September. It was 2 days after my birthday, actually. And we were camping with the ECBRO, the East Coast Bigfoot Research Organization, with Daniel Benoit. And there was probably about 5 other campers there also. And they all had tents set up. And of course, our tent, it's a good size. We had Luna with us at the time, our German Shepherd, and she was a puppy at the time. And we had been up late that night. Well, Luna wanted to go to bed. I wanted to go to bed. I was tired, so I headed off to bed. Later on that night, I was woke to the sound of what sounded like whooping going on. It was way off in the distance. And of course, I drifted back to sleep. And then a couple of hours later, I was woken up by sounds of something messing around outside our tent. It sounded like multiple. It's whatever it was moving around. You could hear the leaves, you could hear little twigs snapping and stuff. And it got my attention. It also alerted Luna. She set up and she just kept listening. She kept tilting her head. Well, I was trying to get awake enough to hear it. I tried to wake David up, couldn't hear, couldn't get him to wake up. Well, then all of a sudden I started hearing what sounded like 3 different voices of whatever animal creature it was. I call it a creature, but they were all going whoop, whoop. And it was just like a group of them all whooping and hollering. And it was so loud. To this day, I can't get that sound out of my head, but the sounds were so loud. I was trying to get David up, but Luna, she kept quiet. She just kept watching me. I was trying to find my phone. I left it underneath my pillow on my cot, but during me trying to wake up and get up into a kind of like a sitting position, propped up a little bit, it must have fell off of the cot and went underneath my cot, and I could not find it to try to record it because I couldn't get David awake. And so I got the bright idea to try to crack open the zippered window that was behind me where the sounds were coming from. They were just outside the window area. Right. And as soon as I cracked it just a little bit, immediately everything stopped. The sounds stopped and you could hear them leaving. I mean, they were gone. And then a couple minutes later is when David finally, I was able to get him awake. Of course, he sat up, tried to listen, but by then they were gone. And I mean, there was no sound. You could not hear any of the wildlife outside. No owls, no insects, locusts. You couldn't hear nothing. And when I finally, I could not go back to sleep. And of course, it was starting, the light was coming from the sun and stuff rising. So I got dressed and went outside and tried to tell everybody else what had happened. And nobody else had that experience but me. But I started getting really nauseated, really sick on my stomach. I started getting a very bad headache. And I was getting lightheaded and kind of dizzy. And I was so tired. And I couldn't understand why, because I'd went to bed early. So I knew I'd had some sleep. But when I started telling everybody else, Daniel and Dale and different ones and Ron Howes, what had happened and what was going on, they started suggesting that maybe I had been hit with infrasound. And I hadn't really heard about that too much. So I didn't know a lot about infrasound at that point in time. But it took probably 2 days for my headache to go away. It took several hours for my nausea to go away, but I was still kind of really tired and kind of lightheaded. And that took about 3 days to go away. But to this day, I have been all over the internet trying to hear different sounds of what they call Bigfoot sounds and stuff. I cannot find it to recreate it, but it's in my mind. I know if I ever hear it again, I'm gonna know exactly what it is. But honestly, I'm a mother, and we all know how toddlers are, how kids are. If they get caught with their hand in the cookie jar, so to speak, what do when they get caught? They break and run. And that's exactly what those creatures, to me, it felt like they did. I was on to them. When I cracked the thing, it scared them, spooked them off, and they took off running. And judging from the sounds of their voices with their whoops, it sounded like they were about 3 feet tall, because I was sitting up in my cot, and that's about what it sounded like. And it felt like it was level with me. And I have no explanation, but I want to go back to Elkhorn so bad. Elkhorn's located in Augusta County in Virginia, state of Virginia, if anyone's curious about it. But I do hope one day to be able to go back and try to go back to the same spot and see if I can get that again. One thing I haven't really told anybody, I let Daniel know. Of course, David knows too. That night when I went to bed, I had to pee. Well, I couldn't pee because somebody was in our outdoor toilet. Quit laughing, Eric. But I had to pee. So where did I pee? I peed right outside the window where those creatures were at. I peed right outside that window. So I don't know if it was because I'm a female or what. I don't know. But I just find it a little odd that happened. William, you're covering your face.
He's thinking that was a big no-no.
Yeah, but see, I didn't know that at the time. What do you do if you got to go? You're in the woods. You take a quat.
That's what this program's all about. I mean, you
go find a tree, man. You just go find a tree. You just don't pee outside your window. You just go find a tree.
Well, I didn't want anybody to see my backside in my squat.
All right, okay. Jeez.
That's true. I mean, if it was dark out, it was probably wide enough to be brighter than the moon. He'd probably blind everybody.
Roxanne, put up for entertainment purposes only. Come on, Roxanne, entertainment purposes only.
But in all seriousness, this experience happened to me. I don't know why it happened to me. I don't know why it did not happen to anyone else that was in the campsite that night, but it did.
Well, you gave them an open invitation.
Apparently I did. I'm finding that out now.
I just need to pee.
But now, here's what I want to bring up on that. And this is where my mind goes immediately when you told me that. Not saying this is a contributing factor, especially after how long it lasted. But what do you experience with many people? What do you experience when you have a sudden rush of adrenaline? What follows after that?
Dizziness, tiredness, headache, sometimes nausea, sometimes
nausea. Yeah.
Yep. See, that's why I'm bringing this up. I'm not saying what the experience was the cause of the adrenaline, but I just want to bring it up as a point. You have to analyze everything.
Yep.
Well, dehydration will cause that too. So if she had to pee, she was obviously dehydrated to a point too.
Right. But for the experience, normally when you have an adrenaline rush like that, within a couple of hours or less or whatnot, it's pretty much done and over with because your body settles back down. But if it lingers like it did, brings up the question, was it infrasound? Mm-hmm. I didn't experience it. I can't answer that. I don't know what she went through. I can only go by what she said.
And I was an EMT for 13 years almost, for a little more than 12 and a half years. And about adrenaline rushes because you get them on certain calls. Yeah. It's just a given. It's going to happen. And this did not feel like that. It felt different. And it came on, after the fact, whereas most adrenaline rushes, they happen as the events are transpiring. And like he said, they do end a lot quicker than what this did.
Yeah. So now, I've never really, I mean, as far as infrasound goes, I've only experienced it in like observing it happening with big cats and stuff. I've never had an infrasound incident happen when I had an encounter with Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's not to say that it doesn't happen. Okay. But like I said earlier, some of our encounters are similar and some of them aren't.
Right.
Some people smell something very, very grotesque, and a real foul odor, Some people don't. Okay. I mean, there's
Well, my thought on that foul odor smell, real quick. I don't mean to cut you off, William, but I try to parallel it with like a skunk. Maybe when somebody does smell it, maybe they can give off an odor like a warning. Maybe.
right.
I mean, it's just another thought because that's what skunks
Well,
do. You don't smell them
I
until
can
they,
I can
you know.
tell you 100% unequivocally that in I hate to call them Bigfoot because that's not what they are. In when you have an encounter with an actual forest tribe, okay, the ones that we call that look like Neanderthal looking, not really ape looking, more of a humanesque type of a looking facial structure. When you have an encounter with them and one other type, okay, which is the ape looking ones, you are going to see that whenever they touch something, they leave a residual oil on whatever they touch. Okay. Now, some believe that it's scent glands, and I'm a firm believer that it probably is, that it has something to do with scent glands for telling other ones of their kind that they were there. Like
Kind of
when
like with
cats
deer.
get done eating and cats will point their ass somewhere and spray, and that'll tell another cat when that cat's going to come back to that location. Kind of like the same thing. Okay. So, I've always been one that whenever I had an encounter and I was close enough to them and, you know, they touched something, whether it was my dirt bike, my motorcycle, or whether it was, a tree or something around the area where I have the encounter, I'd always see almost like a greasy, oily type of substance on the location that they put their hand. Okay, so that's how I know that that does happen. Okay, now I'm not saying it can't be just a certain type or a certain few. That's why I said it's usually the only two types that I interacted with. Okay, that did that. I don't know about the others. They might be able to do that too. I don't know. But, you know, I believe that that smell might be something with the oil that they leave behind when they touch something as a deterrent for another predator to come into the area, that can smell it and goes and can go right to it and sense, oh, this is a bigger one than I am, a bigger predator than I am. Maybe I should leave, like the bears, maybe it's a warning for the bears to stay away, or the dog man to stay away, or something along that lines whenever you smell
Good
that.
point. Good point. Good point. Yeah.
And that's just my opinion. Okay, that doesn't mean that it's legitimate. That's just my opinion from my interactions with them. Okay,
Well, you got to take it into
but
account.
I do know for
Yep.
a fact that they have
Yep.
those glands in their hands. So
You got to take that into account. What you're saying, you have to look at everything.
I wanted
And
to
when we go ahead,
go ahead. Sorry.
I was just and once everybody got up, we were looking around outside the tent area, but we could not see anything, any prints or anything, because there was so much leaf debris and broken twigs and stuff, because it was right at the campsite. And of course, previous campers and stuff were using twigs and stuff, and they were breaking it all up. And we couldn't find any kind of evidence to indicate that what happened truly happened. And that's frustrating to me because I want someone else to believe that it happened. I want to confirm in my mind that it did truly happen to me. I know it did, but I want to confirm it so bad. And that part is
Well,
frustrating because it's like I'm obsessed.
I think this what I'm going to be saying now will probably help you confirm it a little bit. The young ones. Do you all remember me telling you the first time I had an actual physical visual sighting of one where the female had the little one up in a tree? Do you
Yeah,
remember
I
that?
think so.
Okay, the first one, it was this one that David made for me. And by the way, David, I still have these, by the way. They are all over the place in here. So the big one's just up above me. But yeah, when I saw that first one, I didn't notice the little one right away in a tree. Okay, because you're focused on the big hairy thing standing in front of you. Okay. So and then my thoughts of what my dad and my uncles used to tell me all the time about look down at the ground, don't look them in the eye. Well, when it's standing in front of you, I'm sorry, and you're a kid, you can't help but just stare. I mean, that happens. But when I noticed the little one in the tree, I actually had other experiences too, kind of like what you're describing. Whenever my buddy and I, Daryl, would go camping out in the middle of the woods, especially along this creek that was there, where we had all kinds of activity. When we were young. We were probably 13, 14 years old at the time when we did our first actual camp out, as far as trying to actually bring them into us, and why we had no idea. We just did it. And we had a tree stump next to our tent. And I don't know why he decided to do it, but my buddy, he decided to take and urinate on the far side of the stump, okay, away from the tent. And during that night, we actually heard what sounded like rustling and stuff like that, and things falling from the trees. Okay. And we chalked it up to acorns falling. When you grow up in the country, what to experience. What happens out there. I'm sorry, it's just second nature. It's normal for us. But there was one instance where we did hear a whoop. Okay, we didn't go out and look or anything like that. We waited till morning. But I'm a firm believer that nighttime is basically the playtime from dusk to dawn for their children. Okay, it's their time to let their children go out under the disguise and the cover of darkness to educate themselves on how to travel and all that through the trees and all that, and how to experience things. Okay, I think that it's kind of like when we send our kids to kindergarten, same principle. You send them there to have their first experiences and stuff, and first learning skills. Okay, so it's kind of like that. Now, by you urinating outside the tent, which I don't recommend anybody do that unless you really want to have a good encounter, because there's more than just Bigfoot and dogmen out in them woods. You've got feral people, you've got meth heads, okay? You've got all kinds of different stuff, along with other predators that are natural out in the area. Okay, so I wouldn't recommend that. I usually would say take a 5-gallon bucket with you, and put a garbage bag in it, and utilize that for your bathroom.
That's what our outdoor toilet is. We take, but we let the other campers use it too. That's in our group.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a
But
couple.
I think what it is I think that the young ones, they don't travel on the ground. They're going to utilize those trees, those structures to get from point A to point B, just like a chimpanzee would. Okay. Um, because they're small, they wouldn't be able to keep up with the bigger ones. Okay. Unless they're being carried. Okay. So I think that the young ones use the trees. And I think that's also why we have a lot of people saying that well, there's a good example of it too. In New England, there's a video out there of a reporter interviewing a guy, and in the trees behind him is a small ape-like creature, about 2 feet tall, just playing on the branches. And you can see it. It's like he's in a wildlife park. Okay. It's like a chimpanzee was in the tree. I can't remember when it was taken, but I remember seeing it. It was an actual news reporter doing an interview for a newscast. And it was up in New England somewhere. And I remember seeing that and thinking, my God, yeah, that's exactly, what they do. They do that. Okay. The young ones stay in the trees, until they get to a point where they want to be able to keep up with the adults. Okay. And what I mean by adults, I'm talking the juvenile ones and all that, and the elderly ones. Okay. So yeah, that makes sense that they would come in smelling the scent that a certain female would put out, because they're trying to figure it out. They're trying to educate themselves. So
Well,
it could have been an infrasound incident very well. But at the same time, it could have been any other predator out there coming in to smell that scent too, that you cannot outrule. So it's whatever you want to believe as far as that goes. But I believe that you probably did have the young ones coming in. I really do. So
well, you also got to consider one thing, and this is what I was going to bring up earlier. And this is, I'm not trying to be disgusting, rude, disrespectful, nothing, but I mean, science is science. You just got to face the science, and the truth behind it is a female lets out pheromones, regardless if she's in the mood or not. They let out pheromones. That's going to attract a stronger male. You got to think these things are of nature. You got to think how they act, how they think. They want a strong female. That could be what brought them in, was that peeing outside of your tent. That's why I always say, if you're going to do it, don't do it at the last place you want to do it. It's outside your tent. I pee in the woods no matter where I go. I don't care. That's just me. I'll do it. But
yeah, we're guys though. We're easy to do that.
we're guys, and that's what I'm trying to get at. I'm trying to think how to address this without being disrespectful or rude to any of the females in here. But it's just the truth. The truth is, a female lets out a pheromone. Men pick up on them
biological.
Huh? Yeah,
It's biological. It's something
we
you
men
can't.
pick up on it. We know when our woman wants to wrestle in the sheets. They let out a fragrance. These things pick up on that too. I'm trying to think of a nice way to put this.
Look up,
ring grunt me, and just be very blunt and out about it. But even I've been
look in the corner, Eric, next to your head, not behind you, on the screen.
Oh, thank you. I am so trying to dance around this and not be the ring grunt me. But I mean, it's a trick that I've used during deer season. I've used the same trick during deer season to draw in bucks. It's going to do the same thing with Bigfoot, Dogman, anything out there. Believe it or not, I know it sounds weird, but it actually will bring in a big buck. So if it works on them, why wouldn't it work on the others? And as far as your infrasound thing goes, you could have been at an extremely higher level of stress than what you've ever experienced before because of the situation. that
Yeah.
that's why I can still say that is got to be a possibility for what you experiences, because it was a different kind of stress. It was a different experience, a different outburst of energy. Could it be infrasound? It definitely could be infrasound, but because of the situation, because of the different type of stress, could be why it lingered on longer, why it seemed different too. So you have to keep that aspect in there as well.
Mhm.
Another thing when you're talking about, since I brought up adrenaline real quick, a lot of people don't realize that when you give off adrenaline, animals will pick up on it. They smell it.
Oh, really?
A lot of people
I'm
don't
sorry,
realize
guys.
that, and that can induce a flight or fight response in a lot of animals, let alone people too.
Mm-hmm.
For that,
Right.
a lot of people don't realize that. I mean, we've experienced that a lot with horses.
And that's one reason why I call my experience creatures, because I don't know what it was. I have no way of knowing what it was because I did not visually see. All I could hear was what was going on as it was
And
transpiring.
that's why, but
Right.
adrenaline flow will change the behavior of an animal too, depending on the type of animal. You might want to just be aware of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. And you know, the other thing too is to remember that you don't want to. I hate to say it this way, but you don't want to basically have a bowel movement where you're living. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, you know what I mean? It's like it's like you don't you want to have your waste facility away from your camp.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the way it should be set up, because you're gonna draw all kinds of weird things to happen. And whether it's male or female, okay. And that's one thing that I learned from my buddy doing that when I was younger, is that you don't urinate in your camp.
No.
You know, it's not conducive to what you're trying to accomplish. It's going to add another factor to weed out of the scenario of an encounter that you have. You know, so if anything, it's a learning experience. You know, so
Yeah. And another factor to bring into play too was that when I was urinating outside my tent, I was also trying to hold on to Luna.
Mm.
Oh,
Because she
okay.
was there. Of course, she's female, so that could have also played in
Yeah.
on the events that transpired later on that night. I don't know, but
What you saying? I got to
Huh.
get you all your own tent.
Yeah, it's the old adage: you don't piss upstream where you get your coffee pot water from. I mean, you have to think about this. You don't piss upstream where you get your coffee pot water from. You don't piss where you lay your head. I mean, that's
yeah,
something
just because
people.
you're in the woods and it's a stream, don't mean it's clean.
Yeah,
I'll solve everybody's questions and concern with this in one statement. Just walk up to any bear and ask him where he shits in the woods.
yeah.
Okay.
Which I
So
did see a photo of a bear shitting in the woods, so I could tell you a bear did shit.
Oh, God.
But no, I mean, I know this is probably hard for some people to listen to, but this is all true stuff that you have to take in consideration when you're out there dealing with these cryptids. I mean, this is honestly 100% true stuff that you have to consider.
Yeah.
Because
Cryptids and wild animals.
yeah, I mean, doing something as simple as peeing outside your window can make you have an experience that you weren't prepared for. It's the truth.
1 second, I'll be right back.
One thing I wanted to talk about you guys is paranormal stuff. You know, you was talking about. I mean, I agree with you. That's why I can't stand watching these damn shows on paranormal shows on TV or YouTube, because it's all the no.
Yeah.
You always approach it like, you know, like when I heard that thing running up the stairs, and you got, I'm pretty sure if you guys watched it, you could probably hear it running up them stairs on the other end of that room. You always do what I did. Hey, who's there? Because you're trying to figure out two things at the same time. One, is it a true living person running up them stairs? Or two, sometimes you can get that entity to tell you who they are.
Yeah. That's basically similar to what we got.
Yeah, that's like what we have.
A model,
Yeah.
a model like
And we
that.
do
Yeah.
keep it away from the tent area.
Be
It's in
honest
like
with you.
an area for where the other campers can also access if
Yep.
they need to. That's within our group.
That's a pee pee poopy pod.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. It has a bucket. It has a seat. It's ready to go.
They come in handy.
I'm
Yep.
old school hiking, man. I just find a log, sit over that thing, do my business, bury it up, and keep going.
You're young enough yet there, Eric, to do that.
You're the man, Eric. You the man.
I'm just stubborn. I was like, man, I can't afford to buy that when I got a log. I'll just find me a log. Now I have been known to take like ammo crates and I'll dig a hole and set an ammo crate over that hole and use an ammo crate because I used to do that in Iraq all the time.
Yeah.
Ammo
Yeah,
crates
all
make-
kinds of good uses for ammo crates.
Yeah, I mean, ammo crates are freaking perfect for that stuff.
Yep.
You know, and like in Iraq, we used to piss in PVC pipes that was stuck in the ground. You always wanted to look in that PVC pipe for scorpions or camel spiders because you didn't want to stick your ding-a-ling in that thing if a scorpion or a camel spider was in there because you'd be having more than a peeing experience by the time you're done.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Let alone getting pee all over yourself. So, but you know, it's
I'm not going to touch that.
you know what I'm talking about. Come on, man. Oh man. But no,
I'm curious. I'm curious to see what you all think about this next picture I put up. Okay, this was actually captured in a cavern, a very well-known cavern in Virginia. Okay, in fact, at the bottom of the picture, you'll have the description. You'll have the description of it. Okay, and I'm curious to see what you all think.
dang, those are awful bright eyes. They're kind of translucent too.
No, 1895. It
Oh,
says
I went-
1895.
I'm looking at that at an angle. Okay.
Yep. I was just looking that up the day before yesterday.
Steph, now you notice the difference between these eyes and that first picture you showed. These eyes are not glassy looking; they're just kind of like illuminated from the
Mhm.
light.
Yeah, muted like
Yeah, and you're waiting
Yeah.
for them to blink.
Yeah, it's not like the first one where you can tell it was glass because there's like small points of light. This is large The whole thing is illuminated.
Well, to
Wow.
me, this smacks of just proof that they do traverse
Mhm.
caverns and cave systems when at all possible. So, you know, and this is a legitimate photograph, folks. This was actually taken in the 1800s, in the 1890s. So, you know, it's
The problem I have
When-
with this, you know, the one problem I have with this, it says 1895, right?
Mhm.
There's an awful lot of color in this photo for an 1895.
Well, one
They
thing
could have
back in
enhanced
those-
it.
yeah, they could have enhanced it a little bit, but also what back in the days when they used to take these photographs, I don't know if David saw, take a look at some of the photos of taken around World War II. Okay, because I believe this might be a newspaper clipping of an actual photograph, and that the newspaper clipping might be tarnishing and changing color.
That could be.
But it also depends on the type of paper they used back then to produce the photograph.
Mhm.
So, you know, back then they would slide it in on a slate and then take the picture, you know.
Well, 1895, everything was definitely black and white. Color didn't come along, I think, until the early 1900s. And then I'm not an expert on that aspect, but they were able to go back and sort of recolorize photos. And then, of course, if you take that recolorized photo, put it on paper, time, lighting, and all the other stuff, it causes it to shift and fade and whatnot. I'm not an expert in that side of it, but 1895 would have been black and white. Looks to me like at some point in time when the technology was available, maybe they tried to enhance it by adding a little bit of color to get the different shading and depth of view and stuff. So, and that's my guess.
Yeah, I mean, and that is possible.
This is exactly what I describe when it comes down to the young ones being curious. And I think that when you capture something like this, you're not dealing with adults, you're not dealing with the elderly ones, you're dealing with the young, inquisitive mind. So, and that's just my opinion on this.
The only thing I can't debunk on that is it's consistent. You got the distance between the eyes on all three, consistent. Diameter consistent. Locations, one of them's a little bit off. Of course, it could be in a different location. And I can't say it's really going to be flash going back into the lens because you got three separate entities. It's not one.
Exactly.
So that gives me a big, what is it?
And see, it looks like it did scare him when he seen it. So that's when he set off his flash and he took off running then. And then he came back a few days later to retrieve his camera, which had the photo recorded on it.
And they're looking at the direction of the camera.
Yep.
I don't think it'd be bats hanging upside down getting bat eyes because I think they pretty much sleep when they're hanging upside down.
That'd be a big bat.
Well, distance. I mean, you can't really judge the distance based on the photo.
The one on
I was
the right,
thinking it possibly could be owls.
In a cave?
Yeah. What's going to be a good nutritious meal for an owl? Bats.
I've never looked at owls. I've never researched owls going in caves like that. I mean, I don't know.
Buzzards did. I didn't know owls did. I knew buzzards did.
Yeah.
This one here, if it ain't a buzzard, I mean, I'm looking at shoulders. I'm looking at a head. It almost looks like a typical ape head. That comes down. The one on the right, the tallest one.
Yeah.
It almost looks like it's propped up on something else to make it a little higher up off the ground than the rest of them. The others are
I don't know. I can't. To me, that looks like
they're either behind this rock formation or else they're lying on the rock formation.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, this one here,
it's definitely interesting.
This one here on the right definitely has a bird-like look to it, like it's perched on a rock. The one on the right. But I can also see where it kind of looks like shoulders.
It would be so neat to see the original photo. It really would, but
I mean,
it's not possible.
Exactly.
With the computer aspects to it, it don't shape it out properly, and that kind of really distorts a lot of stuff on it.
All right. Okay. Now, I want to show one more picture to everybody in the chat and to you guys and see what you think here, and then we'll.
Real quick on that one. That'd be back in 1895. You remember they took photos. They came out upside down. Did anybody try flipping that photo around and see what it looks like?
Huh. No, because I'm looking at wood right here inside there. So to me, looks like
that wood or
that
is it a rock?
Yeah,
that's wood.
The
right here in the lower right corner, you can see a log coming up at an angle. You can see a log sitting there on the side next to the edge of the picture. You can tell it's wood by the breakage.
That's what it looks like, Okay, all right.
I'm trying to recall with Grand Caverns where that would possibly be, but it's not looking familiar to me at this point.
Yeah. Right. What's that other picture?
Yeah. Oops.
Okay, here's the other one. I'm curious to see what everybody thinks about this one.
What? Wow, that looks odd.
It does.
That looks really odd. The head. I mean, the heads alone are massive on them things. Oh, man.
But the adult looks like it's wearing some type of a boot or something to me.
Well, even the arms are extremely long. Even for a Bigfoot, them arms are extremely long. I'm sorry. I mean, I may
see how even on the little one.
Yeah.
Even the arm on the little one
doesn't look like actual feet. It looks like a shoe of some sort.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you see the toe right there on her right foot. Yeah.
And it's
And the
also at a
butts.
slight angle too.
Yeah.
Angles
look-
will play on their vision too.
Yeah, look at the
But
lower
look-
portion compared to the upper portion. It's just like way unproportionate.
Yeah.
Look
I
at
don't
the
know.
back of the picture, though. Look further past
Yeah.
them
The two dark
and
areas.
see if you see what I can see.
Yeah, I could see two
Mhm.
things in the back. I noticed that too, but I was kind of focused on these up here.
See, this picture looks like it was drawn in to bring it in more. That it was
Well, you
probably
don't
taken
know
from
that.
a distance, but
You
I don't know.
We don't know that.
It's just that the trees and stuff look more pixelated than anything.
Yeah.
I thought it was a very interesting picture that I found. And personally judging from what I'm seeing, the hair on these things, obviously these, to me,
Oh, we lost William. Or is that me? Nope.
No, you're here. We're here. You're
Yep, I think he's gone.
William, you froze up on us, bro. Well, we'll see if he comes back. I don't know. I mean, for me, this screams fakery, but I mean, I could be completely wrong. There he
until
is.
He's
you need
still
more,
frozen.
You need more information.
Yeah, we definitely need more.
And so they come out with better
There
technology for these trail cams and stuff like that to get clearer
Now he's
pictures
back.
and whatnot. We're pretty much stuck with what we got.
Okay.
I can't afford a $3,000 trail cam to.
Yeah.
It's
what I was saying was with that one picture was that it looked like we were staring at the backside of them, because you could see clearly on the big one that the buttocks on it, So, I mean, that picture, I'll put it up again real quick. And I'll just do it.
Well,
real
that's
quick.
what I was saying a little bit ago. Look at its lower, its butt area is definitely disproportionate than its upper area. It's just like it's not proportionate. It's weird.
unless you're looking at, to me, I
Right.
think it's facing me. I think it's facing me because if you look around where you see the buttocks areas, from what I see on the right leg more forward than the left leg. I mean, the left leg more forward than what the right leg is.
There's also a little bit of an
And then you got a little bit of a light area up around what could be the face area. To me, it looks like it's sort of facing you. If you're looking at that angle, about like a 30-degree angle, it's stepping forward.
And obviously the smaller looks like
that's
it's
how
looking
pictures-
left.
Again, that's how pictures play with your mind.
Right.
I mean,
Well,
you
and that's
look at
the
it
problem with
from-
pixelation.
you're
Pixelation
gonna
is what they
see
call.
things that it's like taking a square with just lines. You can see how it might be looking. The square might be facing in front of it. And you look at it long enough, then the main part's in the back, and that's it plays with your mind a little bit if you don't have something clear enough.
Yeah. I'm not
Yeah.
convinced.
Yeah, definitely.
That's
That's
just
just
right.
one.
I'm just I'm curious because that picture has been passed around on the internet, and not too many people actually know about that picture. But my conclusion from it would be that it is probably a father showing a son how to hunt. Okay. And I'm not talking Bigfoot or Yeti or whatever. I'm talking human. Those are ghillie suits.
Mm-hmm.
Very well could be.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
The legs, yeah, the legs on those two in that photo were too symmetrically shaped.
Exactly.
To proportion to the body. Okay. Now the arms, I can't account for the arm length. The arm length is definitely long in those pictures. So maybe we are looking at a legitimate different type or breed of Bigfoot, but to me it's not it's not the type that I've actually had any encounters with, because to me, I would almost interpret that as probably more like a dog man than anything. Because the head structure on it was completely different too.
I can see that.
So I don't know. I mean,
I kind of
to
see
me,
that.
it would make more sense that it's a dog man.
It's just I can't get over how long
But
them arms are. Them arms are like massively long.
And see, if you look between the adult
exactly.
legs, there appears to be like a transparent, like translucent, like a kind of cloth material that's draping down. It almost looks like you can see
That
through it
could
a
be,
little
or
bit.
No,
that
I
could
think
be,
that's
or it could be just a pixelation.
Mhm.
That
pixelated.
head,
Yeah,
too,
that's a big problem.
Tree of snow in the background. That's what that is.
man, this is a massive chrome dome
See,
sitting
I'm
up there.
talking about this right here.
That's what I'm talking
That's what I'm talking about.
about.
Those are some massive heads.
I just hope that's not his willy hanging down there between his legs, because
I wasn't
that's
going to say
impressive.
that. But it also appears that on the right hand of the end of, the larger one, it almost looks like it's carrying something in its hand. It just almost
Yeah.
The
looks
little
like
one, the little
the
one.
large one.
Oh,
It almost looks like on the right hand, the right arm, it almost
No.
looks like there could be something that
Yeah,
it's
you're-
carrying, because it doesn't.
You're interpreting.
Yeah,
To me, that looks
it-
like the snow in the background. You just look
Ah.
between the hand and the upper part of the leg. I mean, again,
oh. I thought I thought it was holding the little one's hand. That's what I thought.
Mhm.
Although the shadow figures in the back is interesting, but it could be cedar trees. Those could be cedar
Yes.
trees that's holding in heat, and that's why it looks the way it does.
'Cause it almost looks
'Cause this
like an
almost
actual
looks like-
path,
Which-
a man-made path
Yeah.
going down that way.
Because to me, this looks a lot like a
Exactly.
thermal picture. It really looks, because
Yeah.
that one,
and to
The one
me,
in
it would smack more of being like a Bigfoot, if there was more cedar trees around.
Mhm.
Those are all bare trees in the middle of wintertime. So could that just be ghillie suits from, a human taking his son out and teaching him how to hunt for the first time? It possibly could be, but at the same time, I'm not going to say that it couldn't possibly be something completely different than Bigfoot either.
Yeah.
So
The ones at the end of the path, I'm pretty convinced those are like cedar trees, especially that one on the left. Look how it's shaped. It's shaped like a classical cedar tree. I'm thinking that's trees at the end of the path. So, I mean, I could take a picture right now and show you a cedar tree out here. It looks just pretty much just like that. Oh, it's
yeah,
interesting.
that's the last picture I got. Yeah. Now, as far as Native American goes, I don't know how versed you guys are in that, but I don't know if my eyes will be able to read it.
I could try to read it for you, bro. Oh, never mind. Raven mocker.
No way. And he's going to
The Raven mocker. The Raven mocker is a type of said to be a type of Bigfoot. Okay, that's seen in the Appalachian mountain chain. Okay, it's connected to a lot of the Native American lore here, especially in Virginia and West Virginia, Kentucky, and Tennessee, and North Carolina. And it's said to have the innate ability to use the raven as its eyes. In other words, to see far distances, okay, and to have a view from above. And this is a Native American legend that has been around for a very long time. And I'm curious to see what people think just about maybe a possibility of Bigfoot having the innate ability, supernatural ability, whatever you want to call it, gift of using other wildlife, because we hear accounts of people having encounters, and then one minute they see a Bigfoot, and the next minute they're looking at a fox standing in front of them. Does Bigfoot have the ability to make use of other wildlife to basically cloak its existence.
Possible.
You can't
I
rule it
don't
out.
know.
I mean,
Yeah.
because nobody
No.
knows. You can't rule it out. We can only look at possibilities and explore all the possibilities.
I mean, I would if they did. Let's jump on this and look at this as a scientific way of looking at it. If that is true and they can do that, I would say it'd probably be more likely a medicine man that could do it because he knows how to use that power to be able to do it versus just a plain Jane one. That would be,
Right.
and that's just me looking at it, knowing my side of the magic works, how my side of knowing how we connect with animals, everything I know through multiple religions, multiple races around the world. It's always been that way. It's been the medicine man, the holy man, the person that dark magic or good could do that. Somebody like plain Jane me wouldn't be able to do that unless I learned how to.
Well, here's the other aspect of that I wanted to point out too. That ability, if you liken that ability to remote viewing, okay, then it's not far off that if you have the theory that remote viewing works, like say what Jessica does, and I'm sure that it does work because I've seen it firsthand in the military. It's not far off to think that humans could even have that capability too of interacting with the wildlife around them and using their abilities of flight to see vast distances. Okay. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what's happening with remote viewing. Maybe we are somehow, our mind is linking up with other minds through and using their vision to see what we're trying to remote view, and maybe, just maybe, a certain type of Bigfoot, like Eric said, maybe it's the medicine people or the Wachashawakans of the people that have that ability and have worked on that ability and have perfected that ability. Because getting back to that picture of the young one and the adult standing there that looks like a dog man to me, what if that was, say, a Native American father and son, medicine people, holy people?
Mm-hmm.
There are legends of Wachashawakans and medicine people going out and partaking and living amongst the wildlife and all that, away from their people for years at a time, and coming back into and coming back into camp and basically looking like an animal themselves. So could it be? I mean, do we have that ability within us, just like maybe Bigfoot does, to make us see things, that aren't there?
I mean, I personally believe we have a lot of powers within us that's been held back through mind manipulation, growing up through our lives, DNA blocks. I mean, whatever the hell it is, I don't know. And that's based off of dreams I've had, feelings I've had, things I've experienced, things I was able to do as a kid that I can't do no more. I believe we all have that ability. Some of us just choose to go down that path and learn those abilities, where some of us, it's like, ah, man, no, fuck, no, this ain't real, blah, 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 don't do it. Or just some of us just pure don't have the gift for it. I don't know. I have no clue.
Right.
But I mean, when I was a kid, I used to be able to take my finger and hover it over my pencil. And you remember the old school desk we used to have when we was in school? That was one whole piece. You lifted up the wooden top, and all your papers and stuff was in there. Your books was under that deal under your seat. I used to be able to take a pencil and have my finger hovered over that and be able to move that pencil back and forth on that desk without touching that pencil. I can't do it now, but I was able to as a kid. I remember doing it, being bored in class because I hated school. Is that part of that? That's why I believe we have these abilities, but it's just throughout time it's mentally had blocks put in where causes us can't do it. So I think we all can
Right.
either we all can and we just don't know how, or only a select few of us can. Now, could that be tied with my Smith family? Because my Smith family was into dark magic a lot. Could that be the reason why I was able to do it as a kid? That is possible. I cannot put that out because of my family history. I don't know. I don't have a real good answer.
What do you guys think, David and Melissa?
Just talking about that one aspect alone, look at savants. They hear something, they hear a full song, tones and whatnot, one time, go back and play it to a T. Photographic memories. People have that ability. So something's there, but science can't tell why it's happening. But yet they can do it. So I mean, something's there, and we just don't fully understand it. And how people can tap into different things from remote viewing and stuff like that. You can't say it don't happen because you counter that with a savant. If a savant can do what they do, people that have photographic memories who say somebody can't remote view and tap into an energy source somewhere, if it's not themselves doing it, too many questions that we don't have answers for. I find it fascinating. You know, I can't debunk it, and I don't think you can. I think something's there.
Right. Yeah. That's a good way to look at it, savant wise. Melissa, what do you think?
I pretty much agree with him. I've worked with a lot of people that are autistic and high functioning, and they do have photographic memories. They do seem to have skills that normal average person doesn't.
Or it takes years to master.
Yeah, it makes them different, makes them more unique. I think they're less boring than some of your normal people.
They are definitely entertaining.
Yes, you never know what's going to happen when you're around someone that's autistic.
Yeah. I've been around enough of them to know you're right on that.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
Well, gets to be pretty. And the way
I agree 100. I agree 100% with everybody's conclusion there with that. So, I want to thank the moderators in the chat. You guys have hung in there since the beginning. Thank you all very, very much, Roxanne, Urso, and everybody. And thank you for the chat. You guys are really making this an interesting show. Now, final thoughts. Okay. Everybody's final thought on the Bigfoot thing. Just what your expectations are in your investigations. What's your final thought on the existence, just overall.
I'll go first. My final thought on that is there's too much history behind it, from Native American on up through. Yeah, a lot of it can be fabricated out. I know the other stuff. There's too much history that keeps my interest in it to look for it. Like I said, we haven't had our encounters. I can't debunk those that had encounters. There's too much out there we don't know that's happening. And from the paranormal side that I've experienced growing up, that I know is truly paranormal, her hair being pulled and everything else.
Yeah,
when it comes to the cryptid side, I'm all for it. I mean, I can't say he does, but I've got sounds that make you think twice. I'm just going to keep going at it, see what happens. I mean, that's all you can do as far as that. Daniel had his experiences. You've all had your experiences. I'm still waiting on that. Like I said, we've only been out there actively doing this for about 5 years now. But I'm just going to keep going and keep my hopes up and take it as it comes and enjoy myself while I'm doing it. As far as that, I can't debunk any of it. I don't think you're going to be able to.
Oops. Melissa?
Okay.
There's too many people out there, and history tells its own tales that there is something out there. Every day, science, they do find new animals, new species, or species that they thought had had been wiped out by mankind and stuff.
Mhm.
And now they're discovering that they have survived, and they're starting to think they're thriving. But you can't wipe it away of thousands and thousands and many years of people's encounter stories and stuff, and the fact that their story doesn't deviate when they tell their experience. It does not deviate. You can tell when people are lying about something. You can tell when
Exactly.
they're trying to embellish it to get the attention, I guess you could say. But someone that's
Exactly.
truly had an experience, you can tell by the way they tell it, how they tell it, their mannerisms, their verbal and nonverbal of their experiences. You can see them when they shiver. You can see when you can hear when the tone of their voice changes. They start to get, it's a little difficult for them sometimes to tell the story.
Many walk away with PTSD
That's a
from it, too.
legitimate, that's a legitimate feeling that you can't fake. And like he said, we're going to keep on because I truly believe there is something out there. And I hope one day that I can experience it and see it for myself.
Okay, Eric?
I've always said I'm a 99%er. I'm a 99% believe that these things are real. Always leave 1% for the possibility of it being something else. But I'm a 99%er. I believe that there is something out there. I believe in Bigfoot. I've seen enough stuff to convince me that they're out there. The vocalization I caught alone was enough to pretty much bring everything together for me. I've never had an actual sighting that I know of, but that vocalization alone was enough for me to be able to go, I'm not crazy. These things do exist. Because let's be clear about this. Who out in my neck of the woods is going to speak Choctaw or Lakota? What was it? Was it Choctaw? Wasn't it? Was the other one Lakota and Choctaw? I think.
Me.
Yeah. Could you remember? I remember you telling me, but I can't remember. Was it Choctaw or Chickasaw that you was telling me? I can't remember.
It was Choctaw.
Choctaw. Okay, yeah. So Choctaw and Lakota. They ain't gonna be nobody out here speaking that. I mean, I'm sorry.
Right.
It's not. Especially two different languages in a similar space like that. It's not plausible.
Yeah.
I'm not on the res.
Well,
if I was on a res, that would make sense. I'm not on the res. So
exactly. And final thought though, Eric. Also, one thing I want you to talk about too is the final thought on the ability factor of any cryptid really having the ability to utilize something that we have never experienced before, or supernatural, whatever you want to call it, paranormal type of a ability. What's your final thought on that?
Well, I mean, as far as paranormal goes, they have a soul. So when they leave this realm, I believe a part of them is left behind, the same as we are. So when some people experience orbs with these Bigfoot, I believe it's probably more paranormal than it is physical. That's just my outlook on it. That's just because of my experiences through my investigations, researches, and studies. That's where I'm at on that. As far as them having supernatural powers, I would agree they're more attuned to that than we are. So the possibility of them being able to do that is well within that realm of possibility. Okay. I believe they can do things. Now, is every single one of them opening portals? No. DA puts it right. If they were opening portals, we'd be having them damn things in our house every single day. We don't have that. I believe some of them can. I believe the medicine men can, the holy men. I believe they probably could. And that's dealing with having the right key for the right frequencies. They mimic. I personally have heard this mimicking different animals. Now, is it different sound? I don't know. Does it reverberate through my chest? Yeah, that's a big ass animal letting out a big ass noise. You get next to a
Mhm.
cow, when it moves, it reverberates through your chest. It's a big
Yeah,
animal with
it
a big
shakes your
lung.
insides. It'll
Yeah.
literally vibrate your organs. I mean, that's the only way to describe it, you know. So,
And the
um,
cow ain't letting out infrasound. It's just a massive animal with a massive lung complex that when it lets out, it vibrates the sound around it. I'm not saying they
exactly.
don't have infrasound. And as far as telepathy, I think they do have a degree of telepathic abilities to them, just because of my experiences in my woods and other places I've been around this world. Now, telekinesis is moving something. I know people call it telekinesis all the time. Telekinesis is where you're moving something. It's telepathy. It's telepathy that they use when they put something into your brain. I believe they can. Um, that one probably more so all of them versus one, or it could be just one. I don't know, but that's my opinions.
Right. Well, I want to thank you guys for coming on today with me, and I want to thank everybody in the chat: Deidre, Kyle, Freaky, Jason, Bounty, Roxanne, Urso, everybody in the chat. You all are fantastic. You have been rocking it today in the chat and having some really good insight. And this is why we do this. We do this to find the answers to questions and to help each other out in our investigations. And you know, I've said it. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. We need to question everything. We need to document everything, every little incident, from the weather conditions to the environmental conditions of the land to what kind of wildlife you observe, everything. You need to literally, to write down everything whenever you have an encounter, because you never know when you're going to be able to link something to causing that encounter to happen. Okay. And that's the key.
A handy voice
So
recorder come in handy for that. Besides writing it down, carry your voice recorder.
exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
They're cheap.
Petroleum.
Exactly. Now I'm down to my last swallow of coffee, but I want to thank everybody for being here. You guys have been fantastic. I know Eric's got a good show coming on tonight with Shane coming on.
That is actually, I just got messaged by Shane. He got called into work. So I'm going to have to change the show up and do that another time.
Okay. Well, maybe David and Melissa can pop in.
I won't be able to. I have to be up at 3 a.m. for work in the morning.
Yeah.
Oh,
I got to be
okay.
up at 5. I know that feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've got to go back to work. It's like,
Tanya, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Robin, good to see you in here too. Daryl, good to see you. Thank you everybody. Deidre, everybody in the chat. Bear, you guys have been phenomenal. Again, thank you, Eric, and thank you, David and Melissa. See,
Well,
I didn't say David and Melinda. I didn't say David and Melinda. I did good.
I wanted to earlier, but I wanted you to keep your composure.
I did it earlier. I got away with it. I did it.
Nobody's
that Melinda part. I'm like, who is Melinda? And okay, never mind. I know now.
Nobody's ever going to know what we're talking about except me, you guys, and Tracy and Daniel.
And it's not role playing either.
No. But anyways, thank you all for being here. It's been fantastic. I'm going to cut out of here. So it's going to be a quick ending. I know, Eric, you want to get ready for your show. David and Melissa, you guys, thank you very much. Love you guys very much. Melissa, I pray for you every day. I know what you're going through, hon. Trust me, I know. Just the only advice I can give you is to just grip on to that feeling of being somewhere else when you're going through radiation. That's probably going to get you through more than anything. Find that happy place. Okay. I give up on it. I give up on treatment. I'm going to put it in God's hands and let him deal with it. Um, it is what it is.
That's my
But
ears.
everybody in the chat, I'm sure, loves you a lot, Melissa, and they're all praying for you. So you'll get through it, okay?
I know I will.
It
I
just
just
takes
want it to move
time.
faster. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
yeah, I know. But
Uh,
And
anyways,
no more hair pulling, Dave. Using your telekinetic powers to pull her hair when she ain't looking. I caught it in the video, even though
I'm just worried about keeping her fed and watered on my end.
well, everybody, question everything. Hey, Richard, good to see you in there. Forest friend, good to see you. Question everything. You have that right, okay? And we need to question everything, and until we get the answers we're looking for and the evidence to prove 100% that things are happening, just walk the walk, okay?
Yep.
Keep making those connections to the environment. Do like I tell you to do every now and then. Take your socks and your shoes off, walk around outside, curl those stones up in between your toes and that grass and that dirt and stuff, and just feel Mother Earth's heartbeat. The more you're in tune with your own environment, the more you're going to be in tune with other wildlife environment and cryptid environment. That's just the way I
it's been
feel
there a
about
lot
it.
longer than we have, so
Exactly. So God bless everybody, and see everybody on Eric's show tonight.
I'll be
Hey,
watching.
guys, peace, love, and blessings.
y'all have a good one.